Well, first of all, thanks for the wonderful welcome, and thank you for coming tonight. And a big special thanks to Tom Mangelsen and the staff who've opened up this wonderful gallery for us. And I don't know if you feel like I feel, but just being here with these images just makes me, it's really good for the soul, for the spirit, to feel that you're out there in nature, even though we're in the middle of Omaha. These images can transport you away. So it's not the ideal way of looking at the images when there's this many people in the room, but I think most of you know Tom's images anyway, so probably some of them are familiar to you. And then there's these new ones that I haven't seen before, and I'm always amazed and marvel at what he does with his camera. When I was writing the book Harvest for Hope, which many of you have now bought, and maybe some of you have read, it was a book about food, and well, maybe you have. No, the reason I say that is because in that book there's a whole chapter about Nebraska, and I wasn't planning to write a chapter about Nebraska. It's about food, what we do to our food, the kind of things that food can do for us. And I suddenly realized when I was finishing off the writing that Nebraska illustrated everything that I'd been talking about in the whole book. It all came together. Like, you know, the genetically modified corn, the overuse of water in irrigation, the center pivots, the shrinking of the Ogallala aquifer, the gradual shrinking of the water in the Platte, this amazing river that runs all the way from Colorado. And so I made a whole chapter about Nebraska. So if you haven't seen the book, get hold of a copy, and you know, maybe you'll learn some things about Nebraska. But I've been coming here every year, partly because I love Tom, and it's wonderful to be with somebody who cares as much about the natural world as I do, but also because it gives me a little break in a lecture tour around the United States to be out there on the Platte River. And I found that many Nebraskans, not you, because you wouldn't be here, but I found many Nebraskans when I've been talking to people who really don't appreciate what you have. I mean, you've got hundreds of square miles of fantastic habitat, all kinds of animals. This migration of the sandhill cranes and the snow geese and all the other water birds, 12 million of them altogether coming through in the spring. And yet, what strikes me so much is that here is this ancient, ancient migration. These birds who've been following this route for hundreds of thousands of years. They're very ancient, these cranes. And they're still coming, and they're still coming even though the water is shrinking, the water of the Platte is polluted, the aquifer is shrinking and polluted, the wetlands are drained. The old prairie grasses they fed on have gone. So now they're feeding on the remnants of the corn harvest. And the farmers, because of the economic environment, are plowing up right up to the very edges of their fields to get just that little bit of extra corn. We have to help the farmers. And I learned about this in Tanzania, where when I arrived in 1960, the habitat for the chimpanzees was all the way along Lake Tanganyika, unbroken. And you could climb up the mountains and look out over the hills, and it was chimpanzee habitat as far as you could see. That was in 1960. In the early 90s, I flew in a small plane over the whole area, and although I knew there was deforestation outside the park, I had no idea it was total, that there were no trees left except in the really steep valleys. And looking down, you could see more people than the land could support. You could see that they were struggling to survive because the land was over-farmed, it was losing its fertility, terrible soil erosion, and the water from the watershed was gradually diminishing. And that's when I realized if we can't improve the lives of the people living in extreme poverty around the last of the wilderness areas, then we may as well give up on conservation.